Okay, we're going to get kicked off with the whole issue of banks removing people's bank accounts and so on. I want to say thanks to Martin Edwards, who has written many great articles in the past for the UK column for this. But let's bring the B Corporation movement on screen. Now, of course, we've talked about this organization before, but they're all about let's use business as a force for good, Brian. So it's ethical investments and all this kind of stuff. But this is what they have to say. We need an inclusive, equitable, and regenerative economic system for all people and the planet. Let's use business as a force for good. Now, the B Corporation movement, as you can see on that graphic, there's this little other graphic there, which is called B Lab. And it's the B Lab that decides whether companies are appropriate to be considered members of the B movement or not. So let's have a look at the B Lab and their anti-racism stance. Well, in fact, it's a bit more than that. As an organization, B Lab stands against all forms of oppression, including racism, transphobia, classism, sexism, and xenophobia. We commit to focused and sustained action that dismantle racist systems, policies, practices, and ideologies within ourselves and our networks. As we continue to learn about injustice, we embrace radical reorientation of our consciousness and will listen to the voices of Black, Brown, Indigenous, and marginalized peoples to catalyze equitable outcomes for all. Now, the key word in there is our networks, the key words, our networks. And this is what this is all about. This is common purpose for business, for businesses. But if we bring this on, B Lab, they say, is a non-profit network transforming the global economy to benefit all people, communities, and the planet. So this all sounds fine. But in fact, there's a bit of an ideology behind this. And I'm just going to remind everybody what Mark Carney said not so long ago, a couple of years ago, I suppose now. We'll not get to net zero in a niche. It requires a whole economy transition. Similar kind of language to B Lab using there. He went on to say companies that don't adapt, including companies in the financial system, will go bankrupt without question. So the question then is, are companies removing people's bank accounts because they're actually bought into this ideology, or are they removing people's bank accounts because they're concerned about the attitude of the likes of Mark Carney, who's saying very clearly that if they don't take this attitude, there will be consequences? But it should perhaps be no surprise to people then that one particular bank belonging to the B movement, a certified B corporation, is Coutts and Company. So this would explain perhaps why certain people have been kicked off. And Nigel Farage, of course, is who we're talking about. But they're not the only bank that's already signed up. Coventry Building Society has become the first B Corp-certified UK building society. Hoare and Company, another private bank in the UK, also a B certified company. The Charity Bank in the UK is a B certified company. And the Cooperative Bank, well, not in the UK, this is in New Zealand, because of course it's not just a UK thing, it's a global thing. The Cooperative Bank in New Zealand, also a B certified corporation. Now, it takes quite a long time for people to become certified. And so other organizations are, of course, working towards it. But let's look at the broader picture, because what is the B movement into? Well, here is the Sustainable Development Goals Action Manager, which the B movement has set up, which helps all businesses take action for the Sustainable Development Goals. So it's not just about transphobia and wokeness, it's also about net zero, absolutely. And if we look at some of the characters that have been around the Farage situation, here's Alison Rose, no longer, of course, Chief Executive of the NatWest Group because she resigned a couple of days ago. But this is a little bit of her CV from an event she took part in recently. Alison co-leads both the UK government's Energy Efficiency Task Force and its Rose Review Board for Female Entrepreneurship. She also sits on the Board of Directors for the Institute of International Finance. In addition, Alison is a member of the International Business Council for the World Economic Forum and Vice Chair of the Business in the Community, is a non-executive director of Great Portland Estates PLC and sits on the board of Coutts Charitable Foundation. And she became a Dame Commander of the British Empire in the 2023 New Year's Honours List. How the mighty have fallen. But nonetheless, the point is, this is a global initiative with the same types of globalists that we find in many other policy areas. here, let's have another look at another member of the network. This is ESG Clarity. And well, they have a little video series that they're calling Best Behaviour, B being the letter B. And of course, all the behavioral science side of things comes in at this point as well. And so we start to see how this entire network has operated and operates and has done over the last couple of years in many policy areas, not just in the area of finance. And if we just bring that back on screen again for 1 second, the top right-hand video there in the Best Behaviour series, inspirational element of working with companies that care is none other than the now former Coutts CEO, Peter Favell. So, I don't know what you think about this. I mean, I'm literally only scratching the surface of this, and there's much more to talk about here. But we've got, former governors of the Bank of England saying that there's going to be, a whole economic transition. We've got the B movement saying there's going to be a whole economy transition. And most of these companies seem to be bought into this and are either members already or are becoming members, not just to push, as I say, so-called woke ideology, but also net zero.
Yeah. Well, you've identified the key thing, Mike, which is policy. Everybody in this country should be looking at policy and where it comes from. So is this driven by the UK government? Well, many people would say it is, but you've identified very clearly that what's going on in the background is policy coming out of the likes of the World Economic Forum or the World Health Organization or the United Nations. And these external creators of policy are driving that back into the UK political system. So it's a double stream because we've got MPs that are now completely brainwashed by sustainable goals. They don't know what they are really, they just follow the policy. So we've got some of it coming through Parliament, the civil service, and we've got a lot of it coming in through these globalist corporate think tanks like the World Economic Forum. But the public in UK are absolutely at the bottom of the pile because they're not being consulted at any stage.
So we're going to have much more on this in the coming days and weeks. We'll talk a little bit more about it in extra. But in the meantime, speaking of net zero, let's welcome Vanessa.